Hello guys, I'm Green Pea here, and I've been wanting to do a video on special needs, whatever it's called, for years. I originally wanted to be like my life in special needs, like how I did my social life, and how I did educationally compared to my siblings. But I usually shelved it due to time. But I finally do one episode that talked about it, or at least as a talked about it rarely, or as a B-plot, or even as an episode. I'll be tackling 3 that actually did this. One that did an actual full episode on. One that was basically just a metaphor. And as a B plot. Now that we got to here, let's see how respectable have they come. Our first show on the list is King of the Hill. And the episode is about the school board trying to find a way to actually help keep the kids' test scores without the school board defunding the school. So they started special ed. Only one class, which, if they're in like a middle school, they would probably need 2 classes, as at least according from my experience. And this leads to some of the wrongs. This episode says special ed kids don't need to take tests, which you do. Not all tests, but maybe some. And the show portrays special ed like a preschool, which it's not. I get like maybe some may not act the most normal, but they at least have a bit more personalities. Like, I have actually met a girl who was in special ed who was a fan of The Wizard of Oz and Hello Kitty. And the 2 characters that they pick for this episode to be in there is these 2 of them being Bobby and Joseph. Bobby being Hank's son, and Joseph being John McCorn's, Dale's son. And Hank is not really much pleased, because, then again, I'm not really pleased with how they portray it. And they actually go back to the test thing after a complete lawsuit, because the kids weren't supervised during a field trip to what I'm guessing is the Texas equivalent of the Alamo. And the episode ends with them actually taking the test and succeeding, with none of them actually straight up failing. Yeah, for a show that tries to be realistic with life, they sure don't have a very accurate portrayal of the mentally handicapped. Now on to Clarence, a little bit more of a recent show that might have a little bit accurate appeal. This one's more of a metaphor of the episode known as Special Jeff, centered around Jeff, the smart kid who is usually friends with Clarence. Who I've met kids like Jeff, and they are not very nice. They're like these very smarty pants kids who don't actually go into like very nosy, like this robo-law thing. And they're more likely to be into stuff such as dead game franchises. And they're usually just a jerk and barely have friends now, most likely not last past high school. And the episode's about during a where he tries to get excited over there was actually the episode usually centers around the thing about 2 classes, the test they took. That's the second time I mentioned an episode on this video where I mentioned about tests. Well, unlike this one actually determines which class to be in. The crayon class, which are the not so smart, for the not so smart kids, and the quail class, which is portrayed with a feather, for the smart kids. Jeff didn't enter the smart one, and is not very pleased in the episodes. And they portray it more like, a daycare. And it goes into an alright war between Vikings and astronauts. And then Jeff finds his head score and realizes that he did pretty well, which kind of leaves him special. And it does kind of show like a lesson. No matter how smart you get, you're not always going to be around with smart people, or even be in a class that's for the very likely. And I probably think the crayon class is most likely just special needs. And this could be a good lesson to kids. You know those characters are always overly intelligent and never get an answer wrong? Well, those characters actually make me more conscious about my intelligence. Actually, when I got when I didn't even get a perfect score, I actually sometimes wrote, "I am dumb," and actually misspelled the word dumb. Yeah. I was in, the classes that I'm talking about, being portrayed as not really the most intelligent in mind. Oh. The episode ends with the class is going back to normal because of a lawsuit. Because of the Vikings and astronaut thing. Last one on our list is Everest for Family. A show set in the 70s, and it's around season 4, during like the new school year season. Where the episode's a B-plot of Kevin not being very good grades, so his mom, Helen, actually tried to put him in likely, but she failed. But Kevin discovers the Lord of the Rings, and then he meets a girl who he falls in love with, who also likes the Lord of the Rings. Then again, I really enjoyed the films. And that's basically the episode, at least of the B-plot, one of the episodes. And throughout the series, he actually changed and grew. Like, I was like Kevin back in like middle school and high school. This troublemaker who went for a lot. Then again, from when I was like 7 years old to until I was 11, I lived in Minneapolis, which is a pretty crime-ridden city. And didn't really help that my teachers weren't really very good. But as I grew on, I started becoming a little bit better. And actually, speaking of the intelligent thing, my little sister was in the more, what I call the smarty pants classes, aka the ones that aren't special needs. And guess what? I was on the honor roll. High school, I was on the honor roll, and it was kind of like basically a teacher's pet. My sister's grades actually failed throughout later in middle school, actually causing her to go to summer school for 2 years. Would have been for 3 years if it weren't for the COVID-19 pandemic. And despite the show being set in the 70s, this one's actually done with the most respect, even though it's barely in there. And as for representation nowadays, at least in animation, other than like preschool shows, there is not really any representation of the, or even much of it, of the mentally handicapped. Like, we hear people get canceled on Twitter for portraying the gays as sex crazed, black people as criminals, but we never hear people getting canceled over portraying the mentally handicapped as bicycle wearing idiots. With some exceptions. But is there light in the tunnel? There is, but it's a very, very small light in the tunnel. Some adult shows have been exploring mental health. Stuff like, especially with BoJack Horseman, but recently even with Big Mouth. You know, when they're not, trying to display cheese pizza. And the Owl House, actually, the creator of the Owl House even confirmed the main character Lois is neurodivergent. So there might be some small, but there's still much we have to proceed. And thank you for watching. This has actually been a video I've been wanting to do for some months. I've been this type. And don't worry. More fun stuff will be coming next week. I just wanted to do something a little bit more serious this week. And see you later.